All right, let's dive into what is, without a doubt, one of the most chilling criminal cases in modern Iranian history. It's the story of a man who became known by a truly terrifying nickname, the Vampire of the Tehran Desert. Now, what's interesting is that our story actually begins at its end. Picture this, it's March 16th, 2005. We're in a town called Pogdasht, right on the edge of the desert where these awful crimes happened. There's this huge crowd, and you can just feel the tension in the air. Something big is about to go down. And when I say a huge crowd, I mean it. We're talking about an estimated 5,000 people. And get this, there were even children there. That number alone, 5,000 people, it just screams how much anger and outrage this whole case stirred up across the entire country. So that's the big question, right? What could one single person have possibly done to cause this level of national fury? To really get it, we've got to rewind and go all the way back to the start. Okay, first up, let's look at those final, really dramatic moments. What exactly did those 5,000 people come to see? What unfolded was, well, it was a brutal public ritual. Mohammed Bija was stripped down, handcuffed to a post, and given 100 lashes. The whole scene was so chaotic, so charged, that at one point the brother of a victim actually broke through the security line and stabbed him. And the whole thing ended with a crane hoisting him high into the air, while the crowd just chanted, "Death to Bija." So who was this guy, Mohammed Bija? And what in the world did he do to cause such an intense, visceral reaction from the public? Okay, take a look at these details. The timeline here is just insane. We're talking about a few short months, from March to September of 2004. In that tiny window, Mohammed Bija went on a spree so brutal, he earned that horrifying nickname, the Vampire of the Tehran Desert. And the victim count? It's just staggering. Over 20 people, gone, in just a handful of months. And when you look at who he targeted, it reveals this incredibly chilling, calculated mindset. He went after boys, almost exclusively. Some were as young as 8 years old. And many of them were from poor Afghan refugee families. Why? Because he thought no one would notice they were gone. He figured the authorities just wouldn't put in the same effort to find them. It was a strategy built entirely on preying on the absolute most vulnerable people in society. And his method? It was horrifyingly consistent. He would lure these kids out into the desert near Pakdasht, and once they were there, he'd assault them, kill them, and then try to cover his tracks by either burning or burying their bodies. So, with this level of brutality, you have to wonder, how did they finally catch him? Well, the story of the investigation and the trial has some pretty shocking turns of its own. This timeline, it really lays bare a tragic failure in the investigation. Look here, he was actually arrested back in April 2004, pretty early on, but they let him go on bail, said they didn't have enough evidence. So he was free to keep killing for 5 more months. It wasn't until 2 boys managed to escape, miraculously, and identify him that he was finally caught for good. And this quote from his confession is just so revealing, it's bone-chilling. He actually said that he first thought about going after the children of government officials, but then he decided against it because he was afraid he'd get caught too fast. It just shows you that cold, calculating logic. He was assessing the risk, and he deliberately chose victims he thought society wouldn't care as much about. So the trial itself was held behind closed doors. Bejay was found guilty on 21 counts of premeditated murder, plus this really serious charge called corruption on earth. In Iranian law, that's a big deal. It's for crimes that are seen as tearing at the very fabric of society. And his accomplice? He was actually acquitted of murder, but they did convict him for his part in the kidnappings. And the sentence was, well, it was severe. There were a lot of parts to it. He got 100 lashes, some prison time, and, of course, the big one, death by public execution. But there were also these 16 counts of retribution. That's a concept in Iranian law where the victim's family gets a say. They can demand an eye for an eye, which, in a murder case, means the death penalty. But the story doesn't just stop with the verdict. Not at all. To really understand the impact of this case, you have to see how it completely captivated and, frankly, divided the entire nation. The fallout is almost as important as the crimes. Yeah, this wasn't just some crime story you'd read in the paper. It became a kind of national trauma. It was recognized as the biggest criminal case in modern Iranian history, and it just tapped into this deep, deep well of public fear and anger. And this is where you really see the divide it created. On one side, you have the thousands of people who showed up. For them, this was justice. Simple as that. A monster got what he deserved. But on the other side, the fact that it was such a public spectacle, with kids watching, that started this huge, fierce debate across the country. Should we even be doing public executions anymore? So in the end, the case of Mohammed Bija became so much more than just the story of a serial killer. It turned into a flashpoint for this much bigger conversation about justice, about punishment, and about what a society should and maybe shouldn't show to its children. And that leaves us with this one big, lingering question. When you turn justice into a public show like this, who is it really for? Is it for the victims? Is it for the community to feel safe? Or is it about something else entirely? It's a tough question, and honestly, it's just as relevant today as it was back then.